Hey, in today's video, let's talk about what product development is. Product development is typically the process of bringing a new product into the market to your customers, to your users, and it includes everything from the very beginning when you are doing the discovery of what is the problem that you're going to try to solve with your product, all the way to the planning and execution of the product, and including things like delivery, potentially marketing, and maintenance and evolution or modifications that you are going to do in the future to that product. I hope that you are not hearing all the sound that I hear in the background. Hopefully the microphone is not picking that up. Typically in the beginning, what you want to do is that you want to discover what is the problem that you want to solve with your product. You just don't want to come up with a product and hope that people need it. You want to try to solve a problem or a need from your users. You might want to solve a problem by saving them time when they are trying to achieve something, or maybe you are trying to create a product by entertaining them. So for example, movies, you could think about movies being a product. You could think about this channel being a product. Once you have done your discovery, you are going to have to figure out who are the persons or the personas that you are going to provide this product for. Who are your user personas, your target customers, your target audience, your users, however you want to call them. And there are going to be many things that are critical to do a proper product development. First of all, you have to make sure that you understand how to build products. That's typically what is known as product management. Second, you are going to have to understand how users are going to interact with your products. This is going to be typically what your designers are going to be doing. Then you actually had to build your product. Here, usually you are going to work with your engineers who are going to define or work in the features that are defined together by the people that are involved in planning the product, not necessarily just the engineers, not necessarily just the product managers, and not necessarily just the product designers, but they should be working together to be able to define those features and then execute them. Usually, this is the role that the engineers are going to be doing. Then you have to be able to monitor and understand how people engage with your product. Here, you're going to have people from data. So data scientists, data engineers who are going to be working on being able to monitor how people interact with your product, how they behave when they are finding value on it and when they are failing to find value or how they are getting lost. Then, of course, you want to make this product into some kind of a market opportunity. You want to be able to address a problem that is sizable, that there's enough people with a problem out there, so you can build a product in a business around that product that it's profitable. And here it depends on the company. There's going to be many people working in this area. But when you're thinking about the promotion and how to reach the market, typically this is what is going to be driven by marketing. To a certain degree, in some cases, also sales teams might be doing this as well. And of course, as always, I'm thinking this from a tech product point of view or a tech company point of view. Typically, when you're doing this product development, you are going to start with kind of a seed product, an initial product that is not necessarily going to be perfect and is not going to be able to do everything that you think that it should be doing in the future. That's fine. What you have to do is that you make sure that you are able to launch a first product that is bringing value to your chosen user persona. So to those users that you are targeting with that first version of the product, and that you are giving them a good experience so that they can find the value and they can actually benefit from the product that you are building. And also that it has some key differentiation compared to whatever other products that are in the market that are doing something similar, which most likely there's going to be some of them out there. Once you launch the product, you have to see how can you make sure that you are not just maybe targeting that initial audience that might be a relatively small one, and how can you enlarge and can you reach out to other customers in the future, or how can you bring more value to that first initial audience that you've chosen. Depends a little bit on the product that you're building. You might take one direction or another one. The reality is that most likely what you want to do is that you want to grow your product and you want to make it that is a profitable product that is not losing money. Of course, you want to continue building the product and making the solutions that you're building better for your customers. So you have happy customers. Usually happy customers translates into people that are going to be willing to pay for the value that you are delivering them. So what you're going to do next is that you are going to iterate. And iterating means that you are going to have to work a lot with your customers to understand what is that they need, where are they finding roadblocks in the current product, and how can you remove those ones so they can find the value that they need to have as soon as possible. And in some cases, you might have target a very small set of features in your product, you might want to be expanding those ones in the future. So how can you make sure that you are building new capabilities in your product without making it too complicated? This is going to be very key for your product to be successful, because nowadays design and user experience are key for products to succeed. So working with your designers, working with your user researchers for them to understand how to solve those problems from the users, it's going to be key. And finally, you had to launch your product. This is something that many companies maybe overlook, and they just throw a product out there and hope for the best. And this is not maybe the best approach, something that's very complicated. And you can see it in many places and in many different situations where there are a ton of apps out there in the App Store that get very little downloads because nobody ever hears about them. And this is not necessarily just about promotion, but in many ways it's related to promotion, obviously. But how are you going to do your go-to-market? How are you going to make sure that people discover first your product? How do you make sure that they start considering your product as a potential alternative for them to take into use? How can you help them consider and even purchasing your product? How do you make it easy for them to take into use that product? How can you make sure that when they start using that product, they don't get lost and they go to some other product, and keeping them as customers for the long term? This is typically go-to-market and the customer journey that you have to take into account from the very early stages of planning your product. Because in many cases nowadays, part of this customer journey, it happens within the product, something that you have to plan from the very early stages. And I forgot to say in the beginning, when you are planning your product in the very early stages, you have to make sure that you include your potential customers, your potential users from the get-go. You want to get their feedback and you want to validate that the problem that you are trying to solve with your product is the problem that they are having. You don't want to be solving a problem that users don't have. Plus, you also want to validate the prototypes that you are doing initially. You want to make sure that what you are building towards is something that the customers are expecting you to build. Because you don't want to, again, build a shiny new product that nobody understands how to use or nobody knows how to take the value out of it. That usually would be a disaster for your product. Because usually when you lose customers in the beginning, it is very difficult for them to get trust again in those products. People usually try something. If it doesn't work, you just drop it, move to the next one, forget about it. That is what happens usually. So just that's something that you have to make sure that the first impressions that you are building or that you are creating for your customers are something that is going to stick with them and that they are going to find that value and that they are going to see the vision that you are trying to achieve with your product. So very quickly, who is involved in product development? There's going to be a ton of people and a ton of stakeholders involved, but typically this is going to include different disciplines like product management, product design, engineering, agile or agile coaching, however you want to call it, data engineering, data science, data analysts. It's going to include user research, product marketing, potentially product onboarding, however you want to call it, or however you do it in your company. How do you do it, like learning people, helping people to learn how to use your product. Sometimes documentation. It can be in many different forms. Quality assurance, DevOps, and product growth are also some of the traits that are going to be included. In a nutshell, you want to include anybody from the get-go that is involved in the creation of that product and put them to work together, helping them collaborate and making sure that they are able to deliver those products that solve your customers' problems. So product development is not product management and neither is product design. If you want to hear more about product management, go check out this video. If you want to hear more about product design, go check out this one. I will see you in the next one. And remember, stay safe.